The Boxcar Children, The Mystery on the Ice by Gertrude Chandler Warner. Chapter 10. The Thief. Later that day at home, Jessie heated up some meatballs while Henry boiled water, then dropped in spaghetti. Violet tossed a salad. Benny sat at the table and got out some butter and Italian bread. Grandfather had stayed in town to dine with the Murrays. While the children ate, they discussed the newspaper article and map they found, plus the different suspects. I wonder if the police are any closer to finding the robber than we are. I'll bet they don't know about the green ink, Benny said proudly. Marcia and Alex and Ollie are the only ones who wrote their names in green. Yes, Henry said. It's an important clue, Benny, but we can't be sure any one of them is guilty. He buttered a slice of bread, then looked at Violet thoughtfully. I know you have a plan. What is it? I can't say, Violet said. I just don't know how it will work out. When will we know? And Violet laughed. Before the performance, I promise. Speaking of performance, said Jessie, we'd better clear the table and get dressed. We need to be at the Civic Centre early so we can sell cookies. I can't wait to see the skaters, said Benny. They'll look like stars skating across the ice. They are stars, Henry said. After leaving the kitchen spick and span, the excited Aldens went upstairs to dress. Each could hardly wait to see the show. Jessie brushed her brown hair until it shone. Violet came into Jessie's room to borrow a barrette. I see you're wearing your favourite dress, Jessie said, smiling. Violet looked down at her lavender dress with a purple knit vest. I want to look my best tonight, she said. Me too, Jessie said, slipping an arm around Violet. Downstairs, Henry winked at Violet. We'd better leave so Violet can try out her secret plan. When they got to the Civic Centre, they arranged cookies on trays. It wasn't long before people who arrived early had purchased a whole tray full of gingerbread men. When Mr. and Mrs. Murray and James Alden came in, they went directly to the children. William Murray brought a dozen thumbprint cookies. So did Grandfather. A snack later tonight, he said. You look so shiny, Benny said, gazing at Mrs. Murray. Why, thank you, Benny, Sarah Murray said. Her white silk dress matched her white hair. Did you find your stolen diamonds? Benny asked, staring at Mrs. Murray's sparkling diamond earrings, necklace, bracelet and rings. Mrs. Murray laughed, touching one glittering earring. No, my real diamonds and rubies are still missing. These are only paste. You mean you pasted on all that jewellery? Benny questioned. William Murray laughed. Paste jewellery means fake jewellery. The diamonds that Sarah is wearing tonight aren't real, she smiled. Still smiling, he added, I wish they were. Children, why don't you run along? Let us sell the rest of your cookies, Mrs. Murray said. Yes, Grandfather said, the gingerbread men have all been sold out, and there are only a few of the thumbprint cookies left. Besides, I know you would like to see the ice skaters backstage before they begin their performance. Thanks, Jessie. Thanks, Jessie said. I would like to see Alex. The children left, knowing their cookie sale was in good hands. Mrs. Murray's diamonds looked real. They didn't look like glue at all, Benny said. The word is paste, Benny. Henry chuckled. Not glue. Paste jewels, Benny repeated. I forgot. In the dressing room, Alex was still in her practice outfit, leotards and t-shirt. Jessie wondered why Alex wasn't dressed yet, but didn't ask. I wanted to wish you good luck, she said. Alex smiled, hugging Jessie. Thanks. I think everything will be fine, she glanced at Violet. Don't you think everything will work out, Violet? Violet replied, I'm sure it will. Carl poked his head in. He was dressed in red trousers and a sequined shirt. Aren't you ready, Alex? In a few minutes, she answered. We're on in 15 minutes, Carl said, leaving. Suddenly Alex exclaimed, Oh, Violet, look at my costume. It's ripped. You can't possibly wear it like that, Violet said, examining the short red dress. Alex looked at Marcia, who sat in the corner reading a magazine. Since you're not skating, Marcia, Alex said, could I please wear your green dress? Marcia jumped up, forgetting her crutches. No! Then she added in a calmer voice, it wouldn't fit you. You're smaller than I am. She reached for the costume, but Violet quickly took it off the hanger. I can fix that, Violet said. A stitch here and there and it will be perfect. Marcia bit her lip, not knowing what to say. Finally she said in a weak tone, be careful of it. Of course, Alex answered, going behind a folding screen with Violet. Marcia glared at Jessie, Henry and Benny. If anything happens to that dress, she muttered. Oh, Henry gave her a puzzled frown. Why are you so nervous about a costume? Yes, why are you, Marcia? Alex answered, reemerging from the screen with Violet. I don't think I'll be wearing your dress after all. Violet held up the green dress. In the light, the rhinestone and other stones glittered and sparkled. And those diamonds and rubies don't look like paste, Benny said. They look real. I think they are, Violet said in a quiet voice. Aren't they, Marcia? Marcia stood rooted on the spot, not speaking, her hands trembling as she reached for her crutches. I don't think you need these any more, Henry said, moving Marcia's crutches away from her. Well, Marcia, Alex said. Just then Carl came in. Are you ready, Alex? There's not much time. He stared at the bright stones on the green dress, then at Marcia without her crutches. I think we've caught our thief, Violet said. Marcia stood defiantly facing Violet and Alex. Are you accusing me of jewel robbery? She asked. You have no proof. This is proof, Violet said, holding up Marcia's green dress. Marcia stared at her costume. She said nothing. I'll be right back, Jessie whispered to Henry. In a few minutes she returned with Grandfather, Janitor Shea, the Murrays, and the mystery man. They all crowded into the dressing room. The police have been called, Jessie said. She glanced at Marcia, feeling sorry for her, yet angry too. How could she have stolen Mrs. Murray's jewels? Marcia glared at Violet. Puzzled, Mrs. Murray looked around. Are my jewels here? I don't see them. Without a word, Violet handed Mrs. Murray the green costume. Mrs. Murray looked from the green dress to Violet, then back at the dress. Suddenly she gasped, My diamonds and rubies! I'd recognise their sparkle and cut anywhere. William, look! Mr. Murray studied the gems. These are our jewels, he announced. Each one has been removed from its setting and put into a clasp that holds buttons and then sewn onto the costume. Benny's mouth formed a big O. You mean the jewels were in plain sight all the time? The buttons are the jewels? That's right, Alex said. Violet thought it was strange that Marcia was so careful of her costume, checking the stones to be certain they were secure. When I saw Marcia without her crutches, Violet said, and then saw her study her costume, I became suspicious. She glanced at Marcia. You see, I was sewing in a corner in the back when you came into the dressing room today and leaned your crutches against the wall. Marcia's expression was grim. So you saw me walk and look at my costume, she shrugged. That doesn't mean I'm a thief. Don't forget you used green ink, Benny shouted. That was another clue. Yes, Alex said, smiling, but I wrote in green ink too, and so did Ollie. I knew you couldn't steal anything, Benny answered. Green ink? Marcia repeated. What are you talking about? Henry pulled papers from his pocket. You used green ink on this map and also on the newspaper article. He put a hand on Benny's shoulder. When Benny got your autograph, he realizes that you and Alex and Ollie had pens with green ink. Sighing, Marcia dropped into the chair. We decided to play a trick on you, Alex said. Marcia stared at Alex. Do you mean your costume wasn't torn? Not even a little, Alex replied. but we needed to look at yours. We suspected you'd sewn on the real jewels." The man in black stepped forward, smoothing his moustache. He cleared his throat and spoke in a deep voice. "Master Westley, you've not only stolen Mrs. Murphy's jewels, but also robbed houses in Albany, Philadelphia, and Pittsburgh." "Who are you?" Benny asked, surprised the man knew so much. Janet O'Shea spoke up. "This is Adam Hooper, a detective I hired." Suddenly 2 policemen squeezed into the room. "This is the thief," Adam Hooper announced, pointing at Marcia. "We're waiting for her explanation." "I'm Officer Malansky," the bigger of the 2 men said, "and this is my partner, Officer Green." He flipped open a notepad. "Who found the jewels?" Adam Hooper sheepishly turned to the Aldens. "I can't take the credit." The Aldens pieced together the whole thing. Marcia's mouth became a thin line, and she said in a cold tone, "Yes, the clever Aldens. If it hadn't been for them, I would have been on a plane tomorrow, and no one would have been the wiser. I've always wanted to have money. I was going to sell the jewels when I got out of this town," she added bitterly. "The blizzard was against me too. Snow closed the airport, or I would have left town the day after the robbery." "Did you really burglarize homes in those other cities?" Henry asked, disbelief in his face. "Yes, I did." Marcia stood up, facing her accusers. "It was easy. My crutches gave me the perfect excuse." She paused, glancing at the waiting officers. "The Murray's house was going to be my last robbery with the troop. I knew I couldn't stay on crutches forever." "No, you couldn't," Janice explained. "I was beginning to wonder when you were ever going to put on a pair of skates. To think I hired you." "I wondered about you too, Marcia," Jessie said, "when you didn't know a simple skating term or who Valentina Markov was." Marcia gave a bitter laugh. "I guess I gave myself away in more ways than one." "Come along, miss," Officer Green said, leading Marcia out of the room. Mrs. Murray clutched the green dress, examined each gem. "Every diamond and ruby has been fastened on this dress." Tears filled her eyes. "How can I thank everyone?" For a moment all that was heard was the police siren fading into the distance. Then Benny spoke up. "You could buy the rest of our cookies." Mr. Murray put his arm around his wife. We will," he promised laughingly. "And we'll put on the best ice show you've ever seen," said Carl. He touched Alex's hand and she smiled at him. "I'll be ready in 5 minutes," she said. All at once Janet O'Shea waved a paper overhead. "I've got more news. The tickets to our 5 Cincinnati performance are completely sold out," she smiled. "It looks as if all my skaters will be paid and get bonuses too." Benny tilted his head. "It's the first time I ever saw you smile, Mrs. O'Shea." Janet O'Shea chuckled. "I haven't had much to smile about. I think, though, sunny skies are ahead." "Good," Benny said. "Then you can smile all the time." Everyone laughed, and except for the skaters, they hurried to take their seats for the performance. Bugles blared, the arena darkened, then one spotlight shone. Ollie Olsen came careening out of the ice on his stomach, sliding across the rink. Benny laughed the hardest at Ollie's funny routine. The clown stumbled around the rink, stopping in front of Benny and doffing his hat. He shook his head from side to side, which caused his orange wig to slip over one eye. He pulled a fuzzy rabbit from his sleeve, then presented it to Benny. Benny's eyes shone. "Thank you," he said, hugging the rabbit. Ollie plopped his hat back on, teetered back and forth, and with the bow so low his round false nose touched the ice, he whirled about, tripping and tottering off stage. The soft music played and the spotlight moved to a couple skimming around the ice. Alex and Carl, in red, glittering costumes, skated out to the middle. They did double and triple jumps, and when Carl lifted Alex high overhead, Jessie clapped the loudest. "Aren't they wonderful?" she said to Henry. "The best," he replied. More skaters came out. With the coloured lights, music, and costumes, the show was one of the most beautiful sights the Aldens had ever seen. The performers' intricate footwork and spins were breathtaking. "I want to be an ice skater when I grow up," Benny exclaimed. Violet smiled. "Maybe you will, Benny. Maybe you will." Jessie and Henry smiled too, knowing Benny would change his mind many times before he grew up. On the way home, the children sat quietly in the car, enjoying the way the moonlight sparkled on the white snow. In his pajamas, Henry touched his toes 25 times. It had been a busy day. A thief had been caught, the jewels had been returned to Mrs. Murray, and they had seen an ice show more spectacular than any they'd ever imagined. Tomorrow they'd meet Sue Lee. He switched off the light and climbed into bed. What could be better? Chapter 12. Sue Lee. As the Eldons ate their breakfast, they admired the gifts they had chosen for Sue Lee. Henry had bought a lovely illustrated Cinderella book, Violet a doll dressed in a denim skirt and plaid blouse, Jessie a soft teddy bear, and Benny a bright red fire engine. "Can I have another piece of toast?" Benny asked. "It's a long way to the airport." "Sure," Henry said, popping a slice in the toaster. Grandfather pushed back his chair. "I'm proud of each of you for solving the Murray's robbery. Sarah is very happy. Your ideas worked." "The green ink idea was mine," Benny said, heaping a teaspoon of jam on his toast. "I won't forget," Grandfather said with a chuckle. He glanced at his watch. "We'd better leave for the airport. The Starlight Troop will be leaving soon, and I know you want to say goodbye." Jessie jumped up. "I don't want to miss Alex," Benny said. "I don't want to see the ice skaters leave." "None of us do," Jessie said softly. "I'm sure they'll come back," Henry said in a reassuring tone. Benny brightened again. "Really?" "Really," Jessie said, "and if they don't, I bet Grandfather will take us to a city where they're performing." "Yes, Grandfather would do that, wouldn't he?" Benny said, putting on his jacket. He felt better. When they arrived at the airport, Alex and Carl rushed to meet them. "We were afraid you wouldn't get here on time," Carl said. He raised Benny high in the air. Benny shouted with delight. Alex turned to Jessie. "Will you write to me? I want to hear how your skating lessons are going." "Of course," Jessie said, trying to swallow away the lump in her throat. Alex had hugged Jessie and Violet. She looked at Henry, reaching for his hands, and hugged him too. Henry's ears reddened, but he smiled with pleasure. Alex turned to Benny, but before she could hug him, he stuck out his hand. "Goodbye, Alex," he said. "I don't like mushy stuff." Alex smiled, gravely shaking his hand. Janet O'Shea motioned to her skaters. "Hurry! They've called our flight. Ollie and the others are already on the plane." With a wave, she hurried away. Carl's voice was firm. "We'll never forget the Eldons." He spun around, grabbing Alex's hand. They disappeared down the ramp to the plane. With sadness, Jessie watched the Starlight Troop's plane taxi down the runway, then lift into the air. But as soon as their plane was out of sight, another plane circled the airfield and landed. "Joe and Alice were on that plane," Henry exclaimed. "And Sue Lee," Benny shouted. At the gate, the Eldons watched eagerly as the passengers emerged. All at once, Joe and Alice came down the passageway, holding the hands of a small Korean girl. "Over here!" shouted Henry. Joe and Alice hurried toward them. They hugged each of the Eldons, then smiling said, "This is our daughter." Sue Lee's big dark eyes were solemn as she gazed at the Eldons. "Hi, Sue Lee," Jessie said, bending over. "Did you have a good trip?" "Yes, thank you," Sue Lee said. She gave Jessie a shy smile. "Let's get your bags," James Alden said. "I have the station wagon and we'll stop at our house for hot chocolate." "Would have been here 2 days ago," Alice said, "except for the blizzard." "Yes, but the blizzard helped us catch a thief," Benny piped up. Joe gave Benny a sharp look. A thief? We'll tell you the whole story, Henry said in the car. When James Eldon pulled into the driveway, everyone piled out. Joe said, "What an adventure you've had, Benny." "It was exciting," Benny exclaimed, "but I'm glad we found out who robbed the Murrays, and I'm really glad you're home." "So are we," Alice said emphatically. "It was a long trip." Over hot chocolate and cookies, Joe told of their weight in Seoul career for Sue Lee. "You should have seen the papers we signed," Alice said, shaking her head. She reached over and put her hand over Sue Lee's. "But it was worth it." Benny, sitting next to Sue Lee, turned to her and said, "Do you play Monopoly?" "No, but thank you." "I don't think Sue Lee knows what Monopoly is," Joe said. "Is it food?" Sue Lee asked. "Monopoly is a game," Benny said with an encouraging smile. "I'll teach you." Sue Lee smiled and her dark eyes shone. "Good. I would like that." "She learns fast," Joe warned. "She'll beat you soon." Jessie presented Sue Lee with a package. Opening the box, Sue Lee smiled. She held the teddy bear tightly in her arms. Henry and Violet gave her their gifts. "For me?" Sue Lee pointed at herself. "Yes," Grandfather said. "The children wanted to make your homecoming special." Sue Lee admired the doll and the book, and when she opened the fire truck Benny had given her, her smile broadened. "I like this," she said, getting off the chair and rolling the truck back and forth on the carpet. "I'm glad you like it," Benny said. He laughed when Sue Lee pushed a button and the fire engine siren went off. "We're going to have lots of fun together," he said. Jessie, Henry, and Violet thought so too.